Hi, good day everyone. I'm Simon Dawson, Senior Lecturer at Cardiff Met University. Welcome to my short interviews with industry specialists, where I ask how they got into the field of work, any essential skills that they use, and any advice they can offer students during their studies or entering the industry. Today, I'm joined by Diane Cronin, the Director for Autus Commercial Solutions. Diane, welcome and thank you for talking to me today.
You're very welcome.
So first, did I pronounce your company name right?
Sort of.
Sort
of.
We'll just say it's my accent.
Okay, we'll go with that.
I'll go with that. So first of all, could you just explain a little bit about what you do, please?
So currently I work as a sales and marketing consultant to the food industry, which could mean working with an SME, a small business, a startup business, or it could mean working with one of the big conglomerates like Payne Daniels or Greencore or whomever. So it's quite varied. And my role can be very much more of a project management role, or it can be a sales director de facto type role. The current role I have is I'm working with an artisan bakery, and as part of this I've been there for now just over 12 months, and my role has been to develop and launch a brand into the retailer, which is now in Marks and Spencer's. So that started right from initial NPD through all the packaging design, doing all of the consumer quant research, to then taking it to the various retailers, agreeing which retailer we're going to work with, and then getting it on the shelf.
Fantastic. So your product is now on the shelves, is it?
It is on the shelf, yeah. It's on the shelf. It's been on the shelf in Marks and Spencer's since the beginning of March, which is not a great time to launch a brand at the moment, to be fair. And yes. It's quite unique to actually get a brand into Marks and Spencer's. That is a bit of a coup, but it's doing okay. It's not doing too bad. It's going to be about 1.5 million to 2 million turnover this year. So
wow.
Yeah, so good.
That is really, really good, yeah. So I had a look through your LinkedIn profile beforehand, and I could see that you've worked for a couple of food companies beforehand in various roles. So what made you then change from working for a company to setting up your own business?
It was a combination of things, where I'd been working for a number of companies for 25 odd years, and in being brutally honest, the opportunity came at that point. There was voluntary redundancies, and I ummed and ahed, and my partner said, "You'll be great on your own, go and have a go." So I did, and ever since that, I started in 2008, and touch wood, I've never had a day where I've not had any work, and all of my work has come from people that I've worked with previously. So actually I don't think I could have done what I do now if I hadn't done my 25 years within the main food industry to maintain the contacts and the network. I don't think you could just kind of launch into what I'm doing without that network behind you.
Yes. So as a successful business owner, then, what do you find are your greatest challenges?
My greatest challenges at the moment are dealing with varying levels of ability and varying people. So if you're working with, say, for example, I did a big project with the CEO of one of the big companies, one of the big major companies, that's a very different audience that you're dealing with there than if I'm working with an SME or a new business startup who's made something in their kitchen and then wants to take it to a retailer. So for me, the biggest skill is adapting what you say to your audience and adapting your style and making sure that they understand what you're talking about, because otherwise, you know, it's going to fall on deaf ears.
I see, yeah. So what kind of essential skills then do you use on a regular basis that help with your job?
Project management. Very good about project. There's a lot of plate spinning to make sure that you've got everything's going in the right place. As I said just now, understanding different people and what their levels and capabilities are and making sure that you tailor the message to them. Commercial acumen, knowing what's the right place to say something, what's the right financials. Making decisions. A lot of people are scared of making decisions, and for me, I am there to make the decision and say, no, I think we should do this, and here are my reasons why. But also being prepared to say, okay, I've heard what you say, and actually, you know, temper it and moderate, so that you have to be a decision maker, but you also have to listen and learn and be prepared to amend your decision with what other information that comes your way. And the other biggest challenge is the retailers, dealing with Sainsbury's buyers, Tesco buyers, Asda buyers. They're all different in many ways. They all have different priorities. And the key learning for that is if you're dealing with a buyer or a product developer or or a technical person, they've all got different KPIs. So you need to find out what their KPIs are, then you know what will tick with them, what floats their boat, and then how you can actually make something happen.
I see. So for any of our current students or any of people that are looking at joining the food industry, that sort of thing, what kind of advice would you give that would help with their CVs and covering letters in order to get their foot in the door for their first job?
I think you need to be very clear about where you want to go in the food industry. So you have big FMCG companies, the Backfalls of the world, the Greencourts of the world, who you go in as a graduate. They're quite open. You may go in as a ops graduate, but actually you end up in a marketing at the end of it because you've done your rotations round and you prefer to go in that. So don't get too hung up about what you're going in as, because that doesn't mean that's where you're going to end up. I started as an ops graduate, did ops for a year, 2 years, and then ended up in commercial. So it doesn't mean that if you start as an ops graduate or a technical graduate, that's where you're going to go. But think about how you apply. So play the game, if that's the right way. So there aren't many ops graduates going into ops, but there is people who want to do marketing, funnily enough. So apply for ops, and then if you might find you like it, but if you don't, you then get the opportunity to switch. So think about that sort of thing. If you don't want to go into something that's very function specific and you want to be more of an all-rounder, then you need to pick a smaller business. Right. So the smaller challenger brands, Higgity Pies, somebody like that, or Charlie Bigham's, they are the challenger brands. And when you go into them, you aren't necessarily pigeonholed into each individual function. You'll be much more multifunctional. So you actually get quite a broader base. So I think you need to decide which part of the fish do you want to play with. The good benefit of going with the big companies is you will get a lot of training. And once you've been with one of those and you've got a good FMCG background and training, then your world's your oyster. But it can be quite formulaic. So if you're a bit more entrepreneurial in your style, then go for a smaller one, go for a challenger brand.
Fantastic. The one thing I've come across, from speaking to a lot of different industry professionals like yourself, is the diversity of roles that are within the food industry. Do you see this a lot as well?
Yeah, huge diversity of roles. And I think people forget how complicated the food industry is. So if you think about a particular product, you've got somebody who is there to buy all of the ingredients that go into the product. You've got somebody who has to develop and come up with the idea of the product. You've got the marketing team who will be doing the consumer piece and saying, oh, we think this product should be for this person, and doing all the branding and the design. You've got a packaging team that will be looking at what's the right pack format to go in. You've then got the ops team who actually physically make it. You've got the project engineering side, who are very much the people who, if there is a new product and a new line to be developed, they're very heavily involved in how do you actually create new automation or whatever to do it. You've got the technical team, which can be either QA or QC, so that they're two quite different roles. You then have the supply chain. You've got all the guys who are then moving it through the logistics team, and then you've got the sales guys as well. So it is hugely diverse area. Wow,
that's really good then, because it just means that if you start in one thing, you don't have to stay in it for your whole life. You've got this variability.
Yeah, very much so. And I think, my experience is people, whilst there are people who are very much specialists in their roles, but people also value somebody who's got a breadth of experience. So, for example, I've done operations, I've done technical, I've got a technical degree, I've done sales and marketing, so that when I'm without having to rely on somebody else to be my wingman, because I know enough to be able to do that. So it is quite good to have a diverse background. Don't worry about being pigeonholed into something.
Right. So just as a final question then, with anybody that's at university or college at the moment, is it worthwhile doing any sort of extracurricular activities? Would they help with things like your CV and
get really difficult, isn't it? there's nothing that I would say was absolutely specific, apart from you kind of need to be a bit of a foodie and have a bit of an interest in food. Whether that's going out to restaurants, whether that's watching trends, whether that's linking with the appropriate influencers on Instagram, social media feeds, all that kind of thing. You need to be aware, you need to be a bit savvy for what's actually going on in the food industry, because I think if you turned up and you had no idea, then people would worry. The only advice that I'd be giving for people as well is, whatever you are doing out there, make sure that you somehow link it. So everyone says, oh, I play sport and I'm in a team. Great, but what actually does that mean? And it's actually, I'm in a team, and being in a team has enabled me to see that everybody has a different role to play and everybody has different abilities, and how I've had to adapt my style to meet their abilities and their role. It's actually, don't just tell me something, tell me the which means that.
Right, yes.
So it's like, here's the fact, which means that I have now learnt this, I can now do that, or I've had to adapt my style because of this. It's that sort of thing, which I think is really quite interesting. And the other thing for me in covering letters is, when you read an application or an advert, go through with your highlighter pen and pick out what you think are the key words. What are the jump out words or the jump out phrases? Then you play them back in your covering letter. So you reference things that are in the job description or the application data, so that you actually show you have read it, you do understand it. And if it's a company, try and find out a little snippet of information about the company that you can just throw in, not as a random fact, but try and link it to something in the advert. You know, I saw you mentioned about innovation. I saw your latest thing that's now launched in Tesco. That was really interesting. Is try and link things so that people actually see you do want it, you are interested. You're not just one of 20 applications they're sending out.
Fantastic. Oh, that's really, really useful. Diane, it's been great talking to you today. I think you've offered some great advice. So thank you, take care, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Yeah, take care. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks.